Hey, vinyl community, we're here with another Four Horsemen episode, and we are all gathered here together. We're missing our good friend JC. Unfortunately, for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be without him, and just want to give a shout out to Josh because we definitely his participation, but the four of us are going to make the best of things, and today we are here to talk about 5 progressive rock albums. So I am going to introduce everybody in the order that we are going to be giving our picks, starting with Chris Prophy, Musically Obsessed, Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll, and of course, Aaron Mutha Alamere. We're all here to talk about, I don't know that they're necessarily our 5 favorite progressive rock albums, but they're 5 progressive rock albums that we have chosen. And we know there's a lot of prog rock fans out there. Hopefully you don't judge us too harshly. Mind, like I say every video, I talk about prog rock, that this is just our opinions. It's records that we like. Don't get bent out of shape if we don't mention your favorite, but feel free to comment if there's any that you feel we missed or whatever your progressive rock favorites are. So let's start with our number 5. Chris, what is the first one up for you?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that these might not necessarily be our favorite prog albums, because I feel like with prog, my mood shift. Like sometimes I'm in the mood to listen to like this King Crimson album, and then I'm like, this album's the best album. But then like a month later, I'm like, I don't know if I'm feeling that King Crimson record too much. So I feel like with prog, I sort of have to be in the mood for certain records. And if I'm in the mood for it, then it is definitely a favorite of mine. But so these albums I'm going to show tonight might be different if you ask me next week. So now listen, is Glenn Campbell considered prog?
That album is.
Ryan
Yeah, just that one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. No, I'm kidding. All right. So my first album is by a band called Gentle Giant. Now, I am new to Gentle Giant over the last couple of years. I have quite a bit of their stuff. I have Interview on CD. I've got Giant for a Day on CD. I've got The Missing Piece. I've got The Power and the Glory. I even have a live record, the official live Gentle Giant. But probably my favorite album by them is an album called Octopus. And this came out in 1972. It's their 4th record. Oh, there we go. Yeah, now that's the US cover, I think, that Aaron has. Yeah, but Gentle Giant is a very quirky prog band. I mean, they're like, when you think of things that you like or don't like about prog, Gentle Giant probably does those things. They're funky, they're jazzy, they've got some jam band quality to them. They've got a rock quality to them. They've got some really intricate vocal lines, some really intricate bass lines. They mix a whole bunch of different genres. The vocalist is sort of has a higher voice. I think a lot of these prog bands, we're going to find that the vocals are very high in the register. For whatever reason, maybe they have to sing above all the craziness that's happening in the musical arrangements. This is music that, like, you just can't put on. It's not like party music. Like, you have to put it on and really just think about it and get into it. And it's music that every time you listen to it, you're going to hear something different. It's not easy music. It's not like putting on a Taylor Swift record and going, oh, I can hum along to this song. And again, nothing against Taylor Swift. This is very intricate music, and I think probably that's why people sometimes shy away from prog, because you have to actually think when you listen to the music. It's not going to hit you between the eyes, you know. There's a lot going on. Sometimes when you first listen to it, you might say there's almost too much going on. It might be a little jarring, but it sort of starts to make sense the more you listen to it. There's a song on here, and I was listening to this today because I wanted to reacquaint myself with this album. There's a song on here called Think of Me with Kindness. And I want everybody out there, if you're interested in listening to this album, listen to that song, Think of Me with Kindness. It's a beautiful melody. Everything else on here is pretty crazy, but that song, it reminds me of like a song that could have been on the radio. So yeah, my number 5 is Gentle Giant. Now I wanted to show you all those Gentle Giant albums because they're all good, but I think this is a lot of times really considered their masterpiece.
Is that Roger Dean cover artwork?
I want to say it is, yes. And I'm sure I could look in the liner notes and say yes, but I think it is. And that's what, again, since we're talking about prog, I love prog covers. And you had mentioned Roger Dean. I mean, you know, he's just an amazing artist, and his artwork just totally fits the vibe of prog music.
Yeah, this one here is John Berg.
Oh, so maybe it is Roger Dean.
I think Roger Dean did a couple Rod McCune covers, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Yes, he did. Rod McCune was a big prog fan. Yeah,
It shows.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, so as you guys are talking about your albums, I'll look to see if Roger Dean did this artwork.
All right. So I'm next, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So my pick is from 1974, and I also kind of want to reiterate what Jeff and Chris both said. These aren't necessarily my top. I know they're not my top 5, but I don't want to repeat a band. If we would, I basically would probably have 2 bands in here. I know that this one wouldn't be in my top 5, but it's still a good album. And this is what I'm going to show. From 1974, this is Red by King Crimson. And I picked this one. I was going between this and the Court of the Crimson King. I was listening to both of them. And I mean, I like that one too. But I don't know. This one is, I'll use the same word that Chris said. It's quirky, and it's heavier. The guitars and everything are a lot more heavy than you would normally think of King Crimson. That you can tell that they're double tracked a lot on that, a lot more fuzz to them, and there's a lot of improvisational work on this album. So that's what gives it the quirkiness. The song Providence is actually recorded live and put on here, and they basically made up a lot of it on the spot. And it's a very dark sounding, to me, that song Providence sounds like it could be from a horror movie, a soundtrack or something, but it's very cool. Just a lot of instrumental work in there, but it builds. And that's the way most of the songs on here are. There's only 5 songs on this thing, so they're obviously longer. And it's, once again, just like you said, Chris, I have to be in the mood for it. If I'm not in the mood for it, there's no way I'm playing it. But when I am in a mood for something like that, it fits it. It fills the bill. And one night I was listening to it this week, and it just sounded really good to me. And I thought, I'm putting this in my top 5. So
I'm going to tell you right now that album kicks ass, and it's probably, I would say, it's one of the most accessible albums for King Crimson. A lot of people go to the first record in the Court of the Crimson King, but I think Red is very accessible. It's also heavy, like you mentioned. It's got some great guitar work. John Wetton does some wonderful vocals on there. So I agree with you. That album is killer. I love that record.
John
I think
Wetton.
it's a little less jazzy
Yeah,
than the other King Crimson,
I think the songs are a little bit more realized. They're a little more, there's more structure to them. Not to say that the other albums don't have structure to them, but I feel like they're a little bit more free. That album seems a little bit more focused.
John Wetton went on to do the vocals for Asia.
Yeah. And also the band UK. But I wanted to say too, this is Roger Dean.
Okay.
So Jeff, you were right.
Yeah, I had a feeling, just it's his style. So
yeah.
Cool. All right, Aaron.
Okay, well, this was kind of tough for me because I like prog a lot. I got all these. I got a ton of prog albums, but I want to go in a different direction kind of with this, and so I like to do that. So I went with just 5 albums that I really love that have prog elements or have that are considered prog but offshoots of it kind of. So my first one, and I could have went with the follow-up to this, which was what most people would have went with. But I'm going with Rage for Order from Queensryche. It's I'm going like the hard, heavy prog route, and this album to me is their best album. I mean, I like all their stuff. And Operation Mindcrime, a lot of people consider it to be one of the best metal prog albums. But to me, this one here, the second side of this especially is very progressive with, let's see, like New Rigel and Chemical Youth and Screaming in Digital. It's just, and it's very accessible. I mean, you can listen to it. My favorite song, Walk in the Shadows, is my favorite Queensryche song is on this. I'm Gonna Get Close to You. That's a great cover. But to me, when I listen for the intricate guitar and all that, and the music with the time changes, I really love how Queensryche does that. And I know it's not the 70s prog, but this is, it's still considered prog music to me. And I do love like King Crimson and all those other bands too. So that's why I honored them up on my wall there. But and their follow-up Operation Mindcrime, of course, is amazing. But I actually prefer this one, even though that's sliding out of here. I better put it in wrong, or I'll have you the Jeff Buckley problem. There we go. But
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I think you bring up a good point though, Aaron, because the prog genre, I mean, there's a lot of different subgenres, which is cool because like jazz, I mean, if you look at jazz bands, I mean, Weather Report is totally different than Miles Davis, which is totally different than Coltrane, which is like, there's different types of jazz, smooth jazz. And the same with prog, like somebody who's maybe not into Yes and Gentle Giant, they would be into Queensryche or Dream Theater. And technically that's prog. I mean, anything that's progressive can fall under the umbrella of prog.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I just wanted to.
Queensryche is definitely prog.
Yeah, I just wanted to show a different side because I figured most of you would be showing the 70s prog. So I wanted to go a different route on it a little bit.
Yeah.
But even though I like this, I like all the stuff you're showing too. I mean, I love that stuff. So, but there's my number 5. And this is 5.5.
I'm more familiar with Operation Mindcrime, but
I love that record too. But yeah, that's more of a concept. It's a total concept album, and I think Rage for Order, especially that second side, has some really progressive elements to it, and I love listening to it. I can jam out to that one any day.
Yeah, that's a heavy record.
All right. Well, my pick is a band that I never associated with progressive rock before. And there's a channel, one of the first channels that I watched, music related on YouTube. It was Tim's Vinyl Confessions. And he's a huge fan of this band. The band I'm talking about is Kansas. And I remember him talking about how great Kansas was and how heavy Kansas was. And I'm thinking, oh, Kansas, get out of here. What? Dust in the Wind, Point of No Return, Carry On Wayward Son, like, get out of here with that. And I actually, I started buying some of their records and I'm like, oh, I had no idea how not only heavy Kansas was, but how progressive they are. The one that I'm showing here, this is their second album. It's Song for America. This is a heavy, heavy album. And if you're not familiar with Kansas, apart from what you hear on the radio, this is going to blow your mind because this album rocks. The title track alone, Song for America, it reminds me a lot of Peter Gabriel era Genesis, kind of like those early records. And you could have fooled me if I wasn't already familiar with Genesis's early catalog and you put that on. I would have immediately thought, oh, that's Genesis, but it's not. But this has got Song for America on it. Lamplight Symphony is great. Lonely Street is a real heavy, heavy progressive rocker. But yeah, this is a fantastic album. Their early stuff, until about Monolith, is really heavy on the prog rock. And this album, I think, is probably my favorite of their early stuff. But again, it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you like I think they took a lot of their influence from the British progressive rock, Yes and Genesis and bands like that. But definitely a fantastic record.
I was new to Kansas, and I until last year, And I agree with you, Jeff. Like, I was like, okay, Kansas, big deal. Dust in the Wind, Carry On Your Wayward Son, or whatever the hell that song is. Like, we hear these songs on the radio. And again, I like those songs. But when I started digging into the records, I'm like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. Like you said, they're very rock, they're heavy, but they have a lot of those progressive elements. The vocalist, I don't know his name, but he's got amazing vocals that he does. And I mean, the instrumentation, everything. Kansas is a really, really good band.
Yeah.
Even with a violin, which is not an instrument you normally associate with progressive rock by any means, but they make it work, and that's their distinctive sound.
Yeah. No, they're a great band.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're one of those bands that's a perfect example of, classic rock radio doing them a great disservice.
Yeah.
Because like you mentioned, the song Carry On, My Wayward Son, I never need to hear that song again in my life. I can't stand that song only because I've heard it so much.
Yeah.
I've seen the choir groups do it and everything else, but they have all these other songs that the radio never plays, never. And there's several bands like that, but Kansas would definitely be up there on that list.
Well, I'm gonna put Styx in that list too.
Styx, yeah, Styx has more stuff that should be played on the radio, especially now. Now that the further we get, because Clear Channel owns all of those radio stations, and they are so strict in their playlists, and it's just sad because there's a lot of people who would never give a band like Kansas another look because Dust in the Wind, Carry On My Wayward Son, whatever. Not that those aren't good songs, but it's not even their best songs.
They've just been oversaturated. You've heard them so many times that
it
really loses a lot of the magic that people heard when they heard those songs for the first time. Now it's like, oh God, there's that song again. You're turning the dial or whatever.
And that's why I never gave Kansas a chance. And when I started listening to them, I'm like, wow, there's actually more to this band than we're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like Dust in the Wind is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
So.
And I love those songs. And part of it for me is I've never been a radio guy. I've always just listened to whatever I have the physical format of. So I never got, like I can still listen to those songs and enjoy them, which is nice.
Yeah.
Because I think, Carry On Wayward Son is an amazing song, but, I can see where if you heard it so much that you would get tired of it. But I've always avoided radio whenever I can help it. And I listen to my own.
You're right about Carry On Wayward Son, because there was a space where I had not heard that song in a while, and I went back and re-listened to it, and I'm like, damn, this song is fantastic. But, again, it's because I had stayed away from classic rock radio for a while, and then when I ended up getting the Leftoverture album, I put that on, and it was like the remastered version, and it was like, wow, this is better than I remember it being, but
oh yeah, there's definitely a time where I thought that was a super awesome song. But not only have I heard it on the radio, but my kids were involved in show choirs and stuff. And so, I see a lot of the Carry On My Wayward Son.
High school bands playing it, yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Where now when I hear it, I can't help it. If I could stay, I've got songs that are some of my favorite songs of all time, like Stairway to Heaven, that when it comes on the radio, I turn it off, because I want to save that for when I'm in the mood to hear it, so I can just, go with how amazing that song is. But if I hear it all the time, it loses the magic,
It's like When It's Love. I can never hear that without picturing Jeff singing it. It's just there in my head every time I hear it now.
Way to go, Jeff.
Sorry about that.
That's great.
Yeah. All right, Chris, your number 4.
Well, my number 4 is Gary showed a King Crimson record. I'm going to show one that has really become one of my favorites, and it's not an album by King Crimson you see a lot. It's the album Islands, and this came out in 1971. It's their 4th record. And like I said before, a lot of people go to In the Court of the Crimson King, or In the Wake of Poseidon, or Lark's Tongues and Aspic, or like Gary showed Red. Those are all great albums. Lark's Tongues and Aspic is a really good record. It's kind of a heady sort of album. And this is the same way too. Like, this is not Like, this is not something you want to just put on for the first time and just, you're not going to get it. I didn't get it the first time I heard it. Like, I'm someone who really likes strange music. Like, you have to listen to an album like this quite a few times. This is a really cool record. It mixes prog, classical music. There's some really beautiful pieces on here. I looked up, there's a guy on here, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce his name right, Boz Burrell or Burrell. He does the vocals. It's the only album he sang with King Crimson. He went on to play bass in Bad Company, though, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Wow.
It's just and this is what I like a lot about prog, is that you don't get tired of listening to these records because you're going to hear something different every time you spin it. There's a lot going on in this record. There's quiet passages. There's little classical pieces that come in and out, and you're like, wait a second, I didn't recognize that the last time I listened to the song. And oh, that vocal line is really interesting. And it's like thinking music. Headphone music. It's not like putting on, again, any singable song that we put on. It's not like that. It's you really have to just delve into it. And I think that this album this and Lizard are becoming two of my favorite King Crimson records. It's beautiful music. Like I said, it mixes classical and prog. And I think that was what was cool about King Crimson, is I think every album was a little bit different for them. I think they were trying some different stuff. So yeah, Islands, 1971.
Cool choice.
Nice.
Okay, so my number 4 it's funny because I got the way you just said, Chris, the way I would describe this album is not the way I would normally describe a rock album, but if you would ask me for the adjective, I would use the word beautiful.
Yeah.
And that is Close to the Edge by Yes. This album, from the instruments, the vocals, John Anderson on here sounds fantastic. His voice sounds angelic at times. And I know I'm using these adjectives where normally I would be like, oh God, this sounds horrible. But I don't know, it just works on this record. This side 2, the And You and I, and all the little, pieces that go along with it and everything. Just what a fantastic listen. You sit down and you listen to this record, and it's, it kind of goes all over the place a little bit, but it's never boring to me. This record isn't. And I when I held this up, you look at the names: John Anderson, Bill Bruford, Steve Howe, Chris Squire, Rick Wakeman. I mean, legendary names here, all of them on it. Of course, this was Bill's last album with him. He went on to King Crimson after this one. But what a fantastic lineup. And the lyrics themselves are pretty cool on this record too. It's just when you think of Yes and what you would expect from them, this is what it would be in my mind. Before I ever listened to Yes, and when I would think of like what would be the good and the bad of them, when I think of something good, this is, I don't like all Yes, but this one I do. This album works, and this happily sits in my top 5. It's a great album.
You might see that album later on in my list.
The most boring thing about that album is the cover,
Well, yeah, not the best cover.
Yes,
Right.
most nondescript covers. I
Looks
mean,
kinda like
I don't hate it. It's just interesting that, the gatefold artwork is so much more interesting than what they ended up using on
that's
the
a
cover.
good point.
But yeah, no, that's an album that demands your attention. Like, it's not music you put on in the background and go about your business. And like you said, angelic moments, like the I Get Up, I Get Down part.
Yeah.
Church organ, where it's like very quiet, and then you have Rick Wakeman on that enormous organ playing like the Phantom of the Opera, and then it kicks back into high gear again. Just so many gorgeous, memorable moments in that song alone. close.
And it has moments where it really rocks too. I mean,
Yeah, no,
on
at the
that
beginning
album.
of it, yeah. It's so like crazy. You're like, what in the hell is going on? And then it starts to settle down a little bit. But yeah, that is my number one progressive rock album of all time. But I'm not showing it today, just because I knew somebody would, and I didn't want to, have too much repetition. But yeah, that's a great choice, Gary.
That's what I like about prog, though. It's everything's overblown. It's like, all right, how high can we get vocals? How intricate can we get this vocal line? How many instruments can we bring into this song? How many movements can this song have? Let's talk about some fantasy lyrics, and let's have Roger Dean come in and draw a picture of an octopus. Like, it's like, how overblown can we get? And then you had Genesis with Peter Gabriel. They used to wear, costumes, and it was like a show. And it's not for everybody, but that's what I like about prog.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Overblown.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, the whole presentation was as outrageous as the music was.
Yeah. And you can look at it too. You can really get into it and enjoy it. Some people look at it as very pretentious, and
it is.
I'm sure
it is.
Yeah, and there's been times in our life, I'm sure, where all of us kind of felt the same way. It's like, no, I just, I just want to listen to Black Flag and the Ramones and that kind of stuff. I don't care about this other stuff. But, eventually you come back to it and you appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad you just mentioned the Ramones, because that's why the Ramones were so popular. One of the reasons, because they were fighting against bands like Yes and Zeppelin. And they're like, you know what? We don't need to play these intricate things. We're just going to play 3 chords on our guitar. And that's why the Ramones influenced so many people, because people like me said, oh, wait a second. I can't play Close to the Edge on guitar, but I can play Beat on the Brat.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that was what was cool about punk, is that it was like rebelling against all this prog. So.
And the Ramones, they were basically taking 60s bubblegum pop and making it hard edged. I mean, that's what they were fans of. So, I mean,
they were playing things that were accessible and things that people could identify with. Like, I can identify more with, like, I Want to Be Your Boyfriend, that the Ramones sang.
Or I want to sniff some glue.
Right, because we all did that, right? Mm-hmm. But, when you're listening to Relayer by Yes, it's like, oh my, what the hell is going on, But, again, I guess that's another video.
Yeah. As normal, we get off track.
Transition into punk, but yeah.
Okay, Aaron.
So this is not a beautiful album, but it is.
Are you making fun of me, Aaron?
No. I'm just saying this is like the opposite of that. I see what you're saying with that record. This is like the opposite. It's heavy, intricate, in your face, and it's kind of one of the start of the metal prog. This is Watchtower with Demonstrations and Chaos. Very intricate, very progressive. And this band was in the early 80s, and they went to the mid 80s, and then the singer left this band and formed, and then he became the singer of Dangerous Toys. But this is a total progressive rock album, heavy as it gets, and very intricate, very, very good guitar work. It's like if you took that Yes album and put power chords, but it just has all that intricacy still. And it's just very influential in a lot of bands like Queensryche, I think, and Dream Theater. This is where it started, kind of.
Wait a second. The singer from Dangerous Toys is in Watchtower?
Jason McMaster, yes. He was the original singer. Yeah.
You just showed this Tuesday, right?
Yeah, I just listened to it, yeah.
Yeah, when you said that, that's what I thought you said during that, when you said this guy went to Dangerous Toys, and I'm like, and he was in this band? I go, I had no idea. No.
Well, here's all I'm going to say. Dangerous Toys has a song called Sportin' a Woody.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, there's Meltdown Asylum, Tyrants.
I need to listen to that.
Yeah, it's very good. And see, there it is right there, the Jason McMaster vocals.
Huh.
Huh.
Do his vocals sound different with that band than they did in Dangerous Toys?
He sings a little bit higher, a little higher to register, but it still sounds like him. But it's not Dangerous Toys. This sounds nothing like Dangerous Toys. This is a masterpiece of progressive metal here. It's amazing.
I need to check that out.
Yeah. And and then I might have done something weird with this. I'll tell you later, this countdown, but you'll see. But this is a really good record. And I need to get, they had a couple other albums. This is kind of a mix up of a bunch of different things, like these the Boss recordings, demo recordings, live recording, but it's so amazing. And the guitar work. And it's just got all these time changes. And it's just, it's like prog, like 70s prog, but just heavier and faster. It's really good.
When did that come out, Aaron?
Well, the first recordings from here from 1983 all the way up to 1987. So this was between 83 and 87.
Interesting.
Yeah, I need to get that.
Yeah, Chris, you had mentioned that Dangerous Toy song. They had Sportin' a Woody. The Beach Boys actually had a song because Woody back then was called a station wagon called Sit on My Woody.
Yeah.
Totally innocent back in the day, but now, of course, it takes on a different meaning. But
Well, wasn't Brian Wilson an adult actor?
his wife was.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I thought when he gained a lot of weight, he became a.
Marilyn Wilson was in some adult films. Yeah.
No.
Anyway,
I thought he and Rod McEwen. Were in a video together.
Yeah, but all right. Well, I would be remiss if I did not include this band in my 5 albums that I am showing today. Gotta go with some Pink Floyd. This
Yes.
is their album Metal.
I hate Seamus though. I hate Seamus.
Seamus, yeah, and I've talked about this and it's like terrible songs on great albums. That's the only song I don't care for on here, but Echoes alone is worth the price of admission for this record. I mean, that really is progressive rock personified right there. But you have One of These Days, of course, which just builds and builds, and then you have Nick Mason. One of these days, I'm gonna cut you into little pieces, and then like kicks, but just that thumping, boom, ba-dum-ba-dum,
Oh yeah.
boom, ba-dum-ba-dum, ba-dum-ba-dum. You missed it, Chris. I was just talking about the bass line, the boom, ba-dum-ba-dum, boom, ba-dum.
I heard you. Yeah, I love that bass line. That's a heavy song.
But and it's funny because you got it hit you over the head One of These Days, and then the next song, A Pillow of Winds, and it's the song is exactly like you would expect the song that's called Pillow of Winds to sound like. It's just so. And David Gilmour has just got this gentle, soothing vocal, and it's a very pastoral, acoustic type track with a bit of slide guitar. Then you got Fearless, Saint Tropez, which is cocktail jazz track.
Yeah.
And then Echoes takes up the whole of side 2. But this is, for me, just like the culmination of so many years of trying to get that progressive sound moving in that direction and then just nailing it with Echoes. It's such a journey. It really is. It starts off, you got that ping, almost sounds like sonar ping, and then it moves into like the song progresses. And one of the things I like about Echoes is you have those great vocal harmonies from David Gilmour and Richard Wright, which I don't think they used enough, but their voices, they blend so well together. And on Echoes, it's really, a gorgeous.
They should have used Richard Wright more on lead vocals because he had a dreamy quality to his voice. And I'm not talking about like dreamy, like I'm talking about like, it's almost like the wind was coming out of his mouth. It was just this like dreamy quality to his voice. I can't think of another word.
It was a great counterpoint. I love this Harvest label, by the way. One of my
favorite
labels. But yeah, you're so right. It was just Richard's voice was what it was, and it was beautiful, and it complemented David so well. Like on Dark Side of the Moon, even on the song Time, that's another track where they blend their vocals really well. But yeah, I like that album a lot.
I know this isn't a video about Pink Floyd, but I love Pink Floyd. I love how every album was different. And they did psychedelic records, they did rock records, they did folk songs, they did everything. And their sound just progressed. I mean, you saw the progression from the Syd Barrett years to like metal. Metal's a cool record because it's sort of in between like what was before and what was going to come after. I like those transitional records. Like I love Obscured by Clouds. I love more. And then, yeah, so Pink Floyd might be showing up in my list too.
And even the title, like metal, it's not metal, it's MEDLE. And what are the connotations of that? What does that mean?
Well, isn't that a photo of an ear on the front cover?
Yeah, it's a pig's ear underwater, which Hypnosis did this album cover. And they took a pig's ear and they photographed it capturing sound like underwater. So it's not a human, it's a pig's ear, which, if you know anything about Pink Floyd, more pig representation on future album covers. But
yeah, I mean, I know Poison wanted to do that for their album Look What the Cat Dragged In, and then they decided to just do the makeup and everything. But
well, yeah, they wanted to put a cat underwater, but PETA was very much
PETA was against it. Yeah, so then they just got dolled up, and whatever. The rest is history.
Yep. All right, we're now on to our third one.
Oh, it's my turn again. Awesome.
Yeah, you again.
All right, well, here's a band that I myself didn't really consider progressive rock. And then I started to think about what progressive rock is. And I said, wait a second, this band is progressive rock. And I'm talking about the Moody Blues.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my favorite album by the Moody Blues, A Question of Balance. I mean, this is as progressive as you can get. They play with different styles of music. There's poetry, spoken word in this album. I mean, look at the cover art too, but another one of my favorite albums by them, which I could have shown as well, is On the Threshold of a Dream. But I mean, you think about the Moody Blues, I mean, their first couple records are more like British pop type stuff, but then they had Days of Future Past, which is like, bringing classical music into rock music. They were one of the first bands to do that. Then they had concept records like In Search of the Lost Chord, On the Threshold of a Dream, To Our Children's Children. Now, I don't forget how many children there are in that. But Question of Balance, what was great about the Moody Blues is that it was prog, but it was like prog light. Like you could play this on the radio, and Justin Hayward probably has one. I'm going to use the word beautiful again, Gary. That's going to be the word of the night. He has one of the most soothing, beautiful voices. Justin Hayward could sing the phone book. And this album has one of their biggest hits, Question, on it. What was cool about the Moody Blues too is that all the members sang. So they all wrote music as well. So it was like every song was a little bit different, and they each brought their own style. So they had like British folk music and psychedelic type stuff, and pop and proggy type stuff, spoken word. Yeah, I don't think the Moody Blues are mentioned enough, and they are definitely a progressive rock band. And this album this is one of those weird albums you don't know how to open it.
Yeah.
The gatefold is sideways, but I think the Moody Blues are progressive. So I don't know, anybody watching this, if you want to argue with me, I'm right, but you can argue with me if you want.
Well, what I love about the Moody Blues, particularly their early albums, and that song Question is a perfect example of that, is they take two separate songs. You've got the main theme of Question, and then it breaks off into It's Not the Way
That you say.
That whole thing. And then I'm looking for, that's a totally separate song. And yet they sandwich it in the middle of what already is a brilliant song. They could have band, those would have been completely separate songs. They would have had hits with both of them. But the Moody Blues, they had such an embarrassment of riches in terms of all those songwriters in that band that it was like, yeah, we're going to stick these together like the Beatles did with A Day in the Life or I've Got a Feeling. Two totally separate songs, could have been separate, would have been hits in and of themselves, but they sandwich them together, kind of like they did on Tuesday Afternoon, you know, or almost two separate songs. But that's, you know, Moody Blues absolutely, I think, are progressive.
I don't know why the Moody Blues are not talked about more. It's almost like people are scared to say they like the Moody Blues, or I don't know if they're too light for people, or maybe they're the most progressive band out there. I have no idea. I mean, I think they need to be mentioned more. I mean, I'll stand on a hill and say I love the Moody Blues because I do. But I think they should be mentioned more in people's top 10 bands.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know why people aren't more.
And I challenge anybody, if you are a prog fan out there and you like Yes, but you've never listened to the Moody Blues, check out the Moody Blues. You're going to see some stuff in there that you like.
Yeah. Well, and they weren't, you know, they didn't have any like virtuoso guitarists. They didn't have like you know, a real flashy drummer. There was not like a whole lot of like the bands like Yes or Emerson, Lake and Palmer, you know, they had like those, you know, keyboard wizards or whatever. But the Moody Blues, they wrote gorgeous tracks. They wrote sophisticated, complex arrangements, and they pulled it off so well. And their first 7 albums, I would stack against any other band's first 7 albums in terms of, you know, the quality of music that's on those records. But yeah, they don't get a whole lot of credit.
I love their 80s hits. I Know You're Out There Somewhere. What was the other one?
Your Wildest Dreams?
Your Wildest Dreams. Those, I could listen to those songs. I want Justin Hayward to come into my bedroom at night, and this is nothing dirty. And listen, friends, I've only had one drink tonight, but I want him to.
Chris wants to
sit at the edge of my bed.
We're not even halfway through our list.
I want him to sit at the edge of my bed and sing Your Wildest Dreams. Is there, I mean, listen, I'm secure in my manlyhood to say that. I have no problem with that, you know?
You got Rod McCune on one side of your bed, Justin Hayward on the other.
My subscriber count is slowing down. You're out there somewhere, somewhere. And I'd be like, all right, Justin, okay, enough. I'm trying to go to bed. Enough, Justin. Rod, get back in the closet, Rod.
Chris is sucking his thumb with his Winnie the Pooh bear. Jack Parr in the background. Listen, son.
I'm sorry. I just took that to a new place. I'm sorry about that.
Oh man.
Yeah, you got to throw a Jack Pyle in there.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, now I got to follow that shit. So my number 3 pick is I went back and forth between, and I'm going back and rediscovering this band. I know I told one of you, I think I told Chris that I just went and I just went and bought an album of theirs. And I actually had this album a long time ago, and I just haven't listened to it forever for some stupid reason. And I chug it back out. But Aqualung from 1971. And
I almost bought that today.
I don't know why. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I was too young for it or something. But this album is awesome. I love this. I just recently picked up Songs from the Wood, and I love that.
There you go with Wood again.
Yeah, I know. That's why I didn't pick it because I knew you guys would jump all over it. And anyway,
Songs from the Woody.
I thought, here's the thing about it, I guess why I picked this. Obviously, I felt like it kind of had to be represented in this. I thought, well, if I'm going to pick Jethro Tull, I'm going to pick Aqualung. I mean, it's got the song Aqualung on it. Cross-Eyed Mary is on here. Locomotive Breath. My God. I mean, this is like their biggest hits is on this album. And it's kind of like what you were talking about, Chris, when you were showing it there, I think you showed Songs from the Wood, I believe. Yeah. But, you talk about they're very British sounding. And I love that. I mean, Yes is also, but I think
Yeah.
Jethro Tull is even more so. And, you know, they've got these like songs on here that have heavy riffs, but then they go into these other parts where you were talking about like, hey, it's like we're just running through the woods. And,
Well, they have a song. They have a song called Weathercock,
yes. Yeah.
and I believe it's a bird, a type of bird, but it's very English though.
Well, and I don't know. This
I feel
whole,
like I'm running through the fields of England, you know, chasing.
yeah, it's they
foxes
go
or
back and
something.
forth. You know,
Yeah.
some of this stuff you can easily, I think when I listen to this album and the fact, you know, I know that Iron Maiden did a cover of Cross-Eyed Mary. And when you listen to Bruce Dickinson sing, not necessarily the range, but the way he phrases things, it sounds like Ian Anderson a lot. I mean, he was definitely influenced by Jethro Tull.
But here's what messes people up, though, Gary, is they listen to that record and they hear Aqualung, they hear Locomotive Breath, and they're like, yeah, Jethro Tull is this heavy rock band. But then you put on like Songs from the Wood or Heavy Horses, and you're like, wait a second, this is not the Jethro Tull from Aqualung. Like, that album is like probably, because their first couple records were bluesy. So
Yeah.
records almost like out of place in their catalog because their other stuff is either bluesy or like English folk music. So I think if the album you're showing right now, which I love, but if that's the one album that people listen to first, they're going to be surprised by the rest of Jethro Tull's discography.
Well, there he's displaying it here for us.
And the Steven Wilson remix is amazing too. If you have,
Yeah, and
oh, yeah.
he's showing that there. And
I need to pick up that record. I saw it at Barnes and Noble today. I should have picked it up.
yeah, I need to pick it up too after listening to this and realizing that it's not in bad shape, but it's not in great shape. And so I definitely need to rebuy it. And I thought, well, I'm going to get that Steven Wilson remix of it. So because I need a perfect copy of it.
And listen, I'm glad you didn't show their album Crest of a Knave, because that's the album that beat Metallica out on their Grammy.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Aaron?
Oh yeah.
Metallica lost the Grammy. Yeah.
And this album is, I grew up with this album. I love it. It's like Hymn 43 is an amazing song too. And
I think it's their most rock album. It's their most.
yeah, Cross-Eyed Mary covered as well. And Iron Maiden and Clutch and Wasp covered Locomotive Breath. So a lot of heavy metal tie-ins to this.
I am picking up that record tomorrow. You, Gary and Aaron, you just.
It sounds great. I love it.
Yeah, I'm picking that shit up tomorrow.
Awesome. That's my pick.
All right, Aaron.
So we were just kind of talking about this for
Wait, are you going to show a Wasp record?
yeah,
Actually, the Crimson Idol. The Crimson Idol is probably a progressive record.
It's more of just a concept, but it's got some progressive elements. So I almost picked that. But this album is by a heavy metal monster band, just a great band. And this album is a really progressive album. It's Seventh Son of a Seventh Son from Iron Maiden.
Yes.
I almost did that.
I should have picked that record.
Huh?
I should have picked that record.
Yeah, and this is they were just rocking out, Power Slave, Somewhere in Time before this, and then they were really progressive with this album. And it's a lot of people's favorite album they did, and it's one of mine. I love it. Starting with Moon, Infinite Dreams, all the way to Only the Good Die Young. The Clairvoyant and the Prophecy, that area of it's just really cool. It's a whole concept, cool story. The only thing that bugs me about this album, they should have made it into a gatefold. It really bugs me because that picture's so cool.
Yeah.
Really,
dude, the title
really
track of that record, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, that, talk about progressive.
Yeah.
That goes through so many movements. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's one of the best progressive heavy metal records ever made. It's amazing.
I have a DVD of them performing live during that tour. It's amazing. The stage show, everything. Bruce Dickinson is killing it on vocals too.
I honestly, last night, I'm like you, Aaron. I was kind of like going back and forth on what I was gonna pick. And I was actually laying in bed last night and I'm like, hey, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son might be considered progressive. And I thought, but you know what? I thought Aaron might pick that. And I also, when you picked Queensryche, I totally was not surprised by that. Although I thought you would pick Operation Mindcrime, I will say that much. But yeah, if there's an Iron Maiden album that falls under that umbrella, it would definitely be that one. You know, even starts out with acoustic guitar, right? You know, just acoustic guitar and vocals.
Deadly sins, 7 ways to win, 7 holy paths to hell.
See, that could be Jethro Tull right there.
Yep.
You're right, though. There are some similarities between Ian Anderson and Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah, that album is that is probably like I can't remember. I ranked my top 5, and I think that might have been number 3 or something. I love that album.
That might be 3 for me. Number 1 is Somewhere in Time. Number 2 is a surprise, Killers.
That's my number 2.
And 3 is Seventh Son.
Mine's Peace of Mind, first album, and then maybe
Peace of Mind is my first, Killers, and then that one.
But you know, Power Slaves right in there. Killers, they're all, everything up to this record, all of them are masterpieces. I think every one of them up to this record.
You know what? I don't listen to Number of the Beast that often though.
I do. I really like Invaders and Prisoner. And,
see, I don't like Invaders. Isn't Gangland on there too?
It's what?
Isn't Gangland on there too?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that song. I don't know.
You know what's funny is I love Number of the Beast, but I rarely listen to that album for some reason.
Yeah.
But the Seventh Son I probably listen to. Probably that and Killers the most, really.
And I know this isn't an Iron Maiden video. I feel like I keep saying this, but the song To Tame a Land is one of the underrated Iron Maiden songs. Love that song. Off of Peace of Mind.
Favorites that's underrated by them is Sun and Steel from Peace of Mind. I love Sun and Steel.
Yeah, that's a pretty good song too.
I love that one.
Right. Yeah. Sunlight falling onto steel.
What's the Caveman song where he's like,
I love that.
Oh, Quest for Fire.
That's the one song I'm not crazy about on that.
Drawn by Quest of Fire.
Is that the one that starts out? He goes, in a time when dinosaurs
roared. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't
Like,
past
seriously, guys? Yeah.
That line is so stupid and clunky. I can't get past it.
I was really into dinosaurs as a kid, so I really like, oh my God, dinosaurs. So that was like,
I agree with you, Gary. I don't like that song.
So the rest of the album is perfect, but not.
Have we done an Iron Maiden video yet?
No.
And Somewhere in Time has some progressive elements on that album too.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Alexander, stuff like that, yeah.
I sometimes like Alexander the Great better than Rhyme and the Ancient Mariner. Now, I've lost a lot of subscribers now, but I don't know.
Shame on you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my favorite Iron Maiden album is.
Sorry, Jeff.
No, so when people say they hate progressive rock, or people who hate progressive rock, the funk bands who were rebelling against progressive rock, the album that they always point to as the main culprit for bringing down progressive rock is this one.
I love that record.
From Topographic Oceans, which I feel has been unfairly maligned. It's always kind of the scapegoat whenever they talk about, oh, the bloated progressive rock that was so pretentious and got out of hand. But I'm going to go on record right now as saying The Revealing of God, which is the first track on this album, is my second favorite track, Yes track, after Close to the Edge. And I feel it can almost stand toe-to-toe with Close to the Edge. But it's a song that I first listen, I was like, wow, there's a lot going on. Like, I can't wrap my head around it all. And then the second time, I'm like, wow, this is a really melodic song. And there's some really gorgeous melodies and parts. I have no idea what the fuck John Anderson is singing about, but it doesn't matter because the music behind it is so, I mean, I know it's got to do with, he wrote some lyrics based on Biography of a Yogi or something like that. So it's very heady, it's very cerebral, but the music behind it on that track is really gorgeous, and it's everything great about Yes. And they could have almost broken some of those songs out and put them out as singles, because there's different elements, there's different suites. It's not like, it's one long song. I mean, there's different, like there is on Close to the Edge, there's different parts to it.
I'm glad they didn't do that, because it forces people to listen to the whole song.
Mm-hmm. And the second track, okay. By the second album on this set, kind of loses me a little bit. It's not as strong as the first record, but this is by no means a terrible Yes album. It's better than you've heard. I would say give it a chance. Definitely, it's a double album. It is bloated. There's no question about that. But give it a listen, and a second listen, and a third listen, and I think you will find that it will be one of, maybe not your favorite Yes album, but definitely one that you appreciated more than you thought you would.
So I wanted to show that record, but I don't have it on vinyl. So I just ordered myself a copy of it.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to show that record. I love that record. I love that it's bloated. I think that's great. Like, I like when there's a lot of shit going on in a song. I like, you know what? I love when I see a song is 27 minutes long, because I'm like, yeah, okay. We're going to go on a journey here. This is not like, 3-minute Beat on the Brat. And again, I like that song.
Yeah.
But 27 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is going to be good.
Well, and all the pieces fit together. It doesn't feel chopped up. It doesn't feel like they were all, kind of patched together, and it doesn't sound unnatural. It sounds like they all flow together really well. I mean, they really, if they wanted to, could have developed any one of those pieces into, a radio-friendly song. They didn't, but I think that, that just shows how strong they were as songwriters and musicians, that they could pull something like that off. Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. It's like the Beatles' White Album. They could have pared it down to a single album, and it could have been fantastic. But I love all those weird elements to it. I love the fact that it's so long. Same with Tales from Topographic Ocean. I think it works well. And if you have the patience to sit down and listen to it, just like Close to the Edge is not passive listening. I mean, you have to sit down and you have to devote your attention to it, and you will enjoy what you hear, I guarantee. But some people are like, I don't have time for that. It's too long.
And I love pissing people off with my music too. I love when people get in my car, and by people, I mean kids, my kids. Like, oh, Dad, when is this song going to be over? I'm like, oh, it's 28 minutes long. Okay. You've got 26 more minutes left. I love pissing people off with music. So
that reminds me of a joke we have in my family. So I've got 2 sons, and when they weren't out of the house yet. And, they both like Pink Floyd now also because of me, because of hearing it. So I'm playing the song Shine On You Crazy Diamond off of Wish You Were Here. And we're listening to it, and it's going, and it has the long keyboard part and the David Gilmour and all that. And finally, my wife goes, just out of the blue, she's like, "Oh my God, are they going to sing in this song or what?" And we just all laugh, and now it's a thing. We'll say that out of the blue, and and she's like, "Well, that's crazy having songs that long where nobody's singing."
At least you didn't play him.
Awesome.
At least you didn't play him Aaron's favorite song, Several Furry Animals Gathered Together in a Group.
Yeah. I love that. Love it.
I hate that freaking song.
I'll defend it. If you come visit, I will make you like it.
All right.
No.
Listen, that's going to be one of those songs. Yeah, I need a few beers before I listen to that song.
Well, that song, I mean, you can't convince me that song wasn't meant to piss people off. Like Roger Waters was like,
yeah,
of you guys. And I mean, there's no other way. I mean, I know, Aaron, you like it, but I just feel he's deliberately trying to be, as, I just like with the Scottish ranting at the end of that song, like, what the hell is that? Like, he's just trying to be funny, or he's trying to take the piss out of, people listening to the record, I mean, it's just so, and the whole, I don't know.
Well, let's face it, the whole second album of Ummagumma was made to piss people off, I think.
Yeah.
My favorite-
Chester Meadows on there. Nick Mason is like all over the place.
But all right, well, before this devolves into a Pink Floyd episode, uh, whose turn is it now?
It's mine, I think.
Yours, yeah. Okay.
I feel like my last two are just too safe. I should have picked like I could have picked like Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Brain Salad Surgery. I don't know, but I'm going with these two. This album was shown close to the edge, but I love this record. I know Gary already talked about it, and I'm going to use the word beautiful again because the song "And You and I," it's probably one of the most beautiful melodies. And we don't need to talk about it because Gary just showed it. I agree with everything Gary said.
Yeah, but you could probably elaborate on it a lot better than me.
No, I mean, it's just, again, you have a sidelong song close to the edge, and you see right here, whenever you see Roman numerals in a song, you know it's going to be good. I mean, there are 4 movements to that song. And then it ends with, I love when you can't pronounce shit either. It's like, the last song is Siberian. Is it Catru or Catru? Or that's when you know a song is good, when you can't pronounce it.
That's the criteria.
I love these. I love it too. These are the movements of "In You and I." Roman numeral 1, Lord of Life. Roman numeral 2, Eclipse. Roman numeral 3, The Preacher, the Teacher. And Roman numeral 4, Apocalypse.
Well, the best songs are songs that you can't pronounce, and they also have Roman numerals on them.
And I think prog, that's what, you're not a prog band unless you use Roman numerals in your songs.
I'm glad you said that.
Right.
For later.
So did I elaborate enough for you, Gary?
Awesome. I love it. I love it. We really brought that to the head there, that whole album. I can't believe if anybody doesn't own that album after watching this, they will definitely go out and pick it up.
And I just want to say this too. I know we've cracked some jokes about prog and things like that, but I respect prog. I mean, listen, I'll crack jokes about metal too.
You have to.
You have to. I mean, Aaron was showing an album Thor the other day. Like, seriously?
Oh, it's killer. I love Thor.
Well, okay, so yeah. Thor.
I like Thor better than a lot of bands. I'm telling you, they're good.
Well, I mean, and Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, I love that record. But talk about an overblown record. I mean, that album, it's killer, but it's overblown. So
okay, number 2. All right, now we're done fooling around.
yeah, enough. Stop.
Number 2 for me, and I don't know. This not only is this one of my favorite prog records, it's just one of my favorite all-time records. A Farewell to Kings. By
Oh,
Rush.
didn't I say? Yeah, love that. That's my favorite Rush album.
Well, mine too. This is, you have an album here where they take a song, Xanadu, which is based off of of a poem of Kubla Khan, which, by the way, I can't think of the guy's name who wrote that, but he's
Rod
the same
McKee?
guy. No, different guy. Same guy that wrote Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so they take lines right out of that, put it into this album, to seek the sacred river Alph decreed by Kubla Khan, and, the search for immortality and everything. But then, the rest of this album kind of has a theme to it also, as far as a loss of being naive, or being thought to be naive when you're actually just a good-natured person. Leaders that, what happened to good leaders? Now you have leaders that are just bitter old people, taking all their shit, trying to put it down on young people, not being open-minded, not being open to love. There's a lot of different messages going on. I think the lyrics to A Farewell to Kings is, when I don't want to get political. For one thing, I don't know how you guys feel, but let's just say a couple years ago, I could put on a Farewell to Kings and listen to those lyrics, and I just kind of like, yep, it's like it could have been written then, could have been written, in that time period. The Cinderella Man, once again, very heartfelt lyrics. Of course, then you go into the whole space rock thing of Cygnus X1, and the use of synthesizers on this is before Rush became, later on they became more of a heavy synth band than they were a rock band. And that stuff is still good, but this is when they're still kicking ass. And they're using synthesizers, they got the Moog or Moog, however you pronounce that, synthesizers that they were using to complement the music. It wasn't necessarily the forefront. It's still guitar. This is still a guitar heavy album. And of course you have Neil Peart on drums. Nobody's better than that. And the vocals, we're talking about the high vocals, you've got Geddy Lee on here. There's nothing about this album that, to me, that isn't perfect. And, some people, I don't know, you still have some people who don't think that Rush is a progressive rock band, which I don't understand that. But this album, to me, is progressive rock. It's progressive hard rock, but it has, a few mellow folk elements. It gave them their first song, their first radio hit with Closer to the Heart. So that was something new for Rush at the time. And I would recommend this album to anybody. And, I know a lot of people can't get past Geddy Lee's vocals. So I get that. But man, this album, you could almost, even if you didn't like his singing, the rest of this album is so good that I almost feel like you could still listen to it. It just, I bought this album when I was a kid. I think I was like 12. And to me, I still love it. It just as much as probably more than I did at that point. So number 2, Rush, Farewell to Kings. Obviously, I can't say enough good things about it.
People give so much credit that people say, oh, 2112 was a prog album just because it had Roman numerals on it. But Farewell to Kings is way more of a prog record than 2112 was.
I agree. And because at first I was thinking 2112 in a way, but then I'm like, no, Farewell to Kings is definitely more of a progressive rock album. Well, so is Hemispheres, really. I could have went with Hemispheres. That was the other one I was thinking of, but I just like Farewell to Kings better. So
well, in Hemisphere starts off with a sequel to Cygnus X1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't Hemispheres have the trees on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What an amazing song lyrically.
Yeah.
The way Neil Peart uses his analogies and stuff in his music. The guy's a freaking genius. He was.
What's funny is, like, you were talking about 80s Rush, but my second favorite Rush album could be Power Windows. I love that.
I guess we would agree to disagree on that. But
Big Money is on there. Manhattan Project. That's a great record. But yeah, no, I hear you.
But then again, I'm a bit older than you. I discovered
Permanent Waves. Is Permanent Waves your second one?
Or
Moving Pictures?
I think it was Permanent Waves. Yeah. No, Moving Pictures isn't even in my top 5. Just because I like, like Aaron said, I love that first Rush album. I love Caress of Steel a lot more than a lot of people do. Caress of Steel to me that's a progressive rock album too. Except it doesn't.
I just don't like I Think I'm Going Bald.
Yeah. That resonates with me also.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going bald too. It's going, so just a little bit slower than you guys.
All right, so we've done our Iron Maiden video, we've done our Rush video. I think we've got those covered now. Aaron, why don't you get us back on track?
Or with the dogs.
Now, Aaron, I was just kidding.
Love that record. That's not
I have never listened to Thor before.
Oh,
yeah, I haven't either.
Well, you'd like him.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, now my last 2 this one here I've kind of used, but I'm doing this because it's so different. And this is Watchtower again, but this is Concepts of Math Book 1. And this is a newer record, just from a few years ago, without, so they got a new singer. And this is one of the most progressive albums I have. It's very, very intricate. It's almost, they call it math rock, Concept of Math. It's just amazingly difficult guitar, just amazingly good stuff here. And there we go. So this is what the band looks like. There they are. And instead of Jason the Master, they got this guy. But all the rest of the band is the same from the old Watchtower days. And this album, this is just an EP, but it's amazing. And I can't believe they came back after all these years with this great record like this, great record here. And, M Theory Overture is how it starts. And your wife would be wondering where the singing was on that, because they don't even sing till the second song on here. And it's arguments, design. It's just an amazing, amazing record. You guys
are there Roman numerals on that album?
No.
So
I guess it doesn't count.
It's not a prog.
But look at all the numerals. They're not Roman, but there's a lot of numbers.
Are there keyboards on it?
It's an amazing record. I mean, it's one of those where you have to sit and listen to it like those other ones you were talking about. But it's got enough of a heavy edge to it where you can also just kind of casually listen and enjoy it. But it's just so complex, and I just love Watchtower. Huge fan.
You say that's a newer record?
Yeah, it's from. Let me see if I can see the date on here. 2016.
Okay, so they all got back. They all got back together except for the singer, right?
Yeah, and I think they've. I don't know if they have a book 2 yet, but this is amazing. Cool. And I was going to use the same band twice, but this is so different than the first one. The first one's more rock, more metal. This one's more Dream Theater-ish. That has that quality to it. But it's just an amazing, amazing record.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal that record when I come out and see you this summer.
All right. Yeah, bring your backpack.
Yeah.
You'll start. Chris will start walking out the door, and Aaron will go, "One of my records is missing."
I'll be able to tell.
Where are all my Japanese pressings? Wait, where's my Thor collection?
Well, yeah. Aaron stole my thunder because my next album is Watchtower.
Wow.
Concept of American history. But whatever. No, my next album doesn't sound like a homework assignment, so I'm going a little more old school here. Gotta have some representation from Emerson, Lake and Palmer in this video, so I'm going to show Tarkus, which is their second album. Just on the title track alone, it takes up the whole of side one. Like all great progressive rock albums, it's a journey from start to the end. You go through different movements, different suites. Some of it's soft, some of it's heavier, some of it's fast, some of it's slower. But yeah, it's a great album. I love the artwork on here. And this is, I think it's progressive. Not that ELP didn't get progressive after this, but I think this is their heaviest progressive rock album that they ever came out with, their most focused track and Tarkus. So I'm going with that one.
I love Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I even they've got an album called Love Beach, which I really dig too. It's a cheesy cover. It looks like they're like the Bee Gees on the front.
Right.
But it's actually a really good record.
Yeah, that was unfortunate because the cover really does the music inside injustice. But
yeah, that gets shown a lot in the VC as like worst covers ever. And you see that one.
Yeah, but the music is really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so my number one. Listen, I was gonna show this album, Dark Side of the Moon. I know this is sort of an obvious choice, but I think is great about this record is I think it's sort of a gateway into prog. Like, people who might not like prog would like this record. But then I'm like, I don't know. But then I was like, all right, do I show Animals? Because this is probably in my top 3 Pink Floyd. But I'm just going to go totally off the rails on the crazy train right now. And I'm going to show you guys a band that you probably have never heard of, but they're a prog band. They opened for Yes. And this album was produced by the singer of Yes, John Anderson. And the band is called Badger. And this is, again, cover artwork by Roger Dean. Now, this is a live record, and it's kind of cool to have a band's first album as live. There are no Roman numerals on here, but it is still a prog record. But this was something that I forget where I heard about this, but somebody's like, have you ever heard the band Badger? I'm like, Badger? They're like, they opened for Yes. You got to check out this album. It's called One Live Badger. And anybody who's into prog and Yes, this album is killer. And for Yes to, sort of take them under their wing, they had to be good. But, I am not a Badger expert, and I don't really know a lot about these guys. But I figured instead of showing Dark Side of the Moon, let me just show something out of left field. So Badger. And if there's anybody watching this still, if you can tell me anything about Badger, let me know, because I want to know more about these guys. But I think you have to have Roger Dean do your cover artwork if you're a prog band.
So we've got Roman numerals, songs you can't pronounce, Roger Dean, cover artwork, lyrics pretentious and don't make any sense to the general layman. They have no way to connect to it.
And all the prog fans are going to be pissed off at us, but I mean, there is some truth to that.
Yeah, well, it's a harsh truth that nobody wants to admit, but
I mean, when you call your song Cygnus X1 or Revealing Science of God, I mean, it's not Beat on the Brat. Why do I keep referencing Beat on the Brat?
I don't know. Did you?
Eagles of Death Metal.
Oh, I know why, because I bought a Ramones record. So get into the next, somebody else talk, and I'll show you the Ramones record I bought today.
But I think that's really like, if you're watching now and you need to know, like, is this album progressive? Is this band progressive? Okay, well, ask yourself these questions. Do any of their songs in their catalog contain Roman numerals? Do any of their albums have Roger Dean cover artwork? Are any of their songs difficult to pronounce? And do any of them have lyrics that reference mythology or Eastern philosophy or sophisticated math?
Can I just talk about the Ramones really quick? Because it doesn't really matter because nobody's watching. So I had a choice. I could either buy the first record today or this album. And I went with Road to Ruin. This is probably my favorite Ramones album. I mean, the song Questioningly is one of the best ballads. And a lot of people don't know that tune. I Want It Up to Date is on here. Needles and Pins, their version of Needles and Pins.
Yeah.
And I love Go Mental. I love the song I'm Against It. This is just
I'm Against It.
Yeah.
That's my favorite record. I love that record.
Yeah, me too.
Joey Ramone's vocals on Questioningly, wow. I don't know. This album is just amazing. So, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, Gary, your Ramones album.
Well, I could easily do that, but
you're a big Ramones. I think you're a big Ramones fan, Gary, right?
Yeah, I am. I love the Ramones. All right, Chris kind of is trying to ruin my pick, but my number one pick,
Badger?
I guess I'm staying in center field. I went with Animals by Pink Floyd. I just feel like this album it's progressive, right? It only has 5 songs on here. It's got some pretty cool keyboard parts in it. It's got heavy lyrics. It's a concept album. It's, basically taking George Orwell's Animal Farm and take it a little bit different. You've got pigs, right, who are the elite, the political leaders, the religious leaders. You've got dogs, which would be your military, your police, and you've got the sheep, which is all the working class people. And they're all pitted against each other on this album. You know, you start out with Pigs on the Wing, and the sheep are talking, you know, they're kind of afraid of the pigs. But at the end, you know, the sheep, they end up standing up for themselves and they kind of win the battle. But this album is just, God, you know, these are the kind of albums that when you hear them, and, you know, whether you're listening to the music or the lyrics, I think you're just in awe. You know, I mean, I'm in awe of this album. This is obviously more heavily Roger Waters than like some of the previous work, as far as even musically, he took over more. It's a more rougher edged album than the other Pink Floyd album. You know, there's a big difference between Wish You Were Here and Animals, right? This is kind of leading into a little bit of The Wall. And it's just an amazing step. I can't help but listen to this. Every time I listen to this album, there's something else. You know, Chris was alluding to it. You hear something different on it. I know Jeff's a big fan of this album, and I think you are too, aren't you, Aaron? You love this album.
Love that record.
And I have noticed that since I have started watching YouTube videos and people talking about it, this is like people's sleeper favorite. You know, at first it's, you know, it's always Dark Side of the Moon or maybe The Wall. But now it's like there's so many people that it's like I hear so many people say, yeah, this is my favorite Pink Floyd album. And it's crazy because it's so much different than the other.
Oh, where did this album fall in the discography? Did it go, what was the order again?
It's between
Well,
Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals, and then The Wall.
Oh,
And
so
then
this
the
came
final
between. So you had the bombastic, you had the huge album Dark Side of the Moon, and then wait, what came?
Then Wish You Were Here.
Okay, Wish You Were Here, but then The Wall came after. So you're right. This is sort of buried in those great albums, you know. And I agree with you, Gary. This is definitely my top three.
And it doesn't have.
What animals do you have, Jeff?
There's no.
Oh no,
no
he's just
hit
doing
on
this.
It's very rare. It's very rare that you hear anything off of this on the radio.
Because the songs
you
are
know,
too long.
Yeah, occasionally you might hear dogs on the radio, but it's rare. And I don't know, the last time I saw Roger Waters, he did a few songs off of this. He's got everything on it, man. What was
Waiting
cool?
for the 8-track to come out.
Reel to reel.
You know how they've got this factory here?
Yeah, it's a real factory.
Yeah, when I saw Roger Waters, this thing came down from the ceiling. It was like this balloon type thing, and it inflated, and it became this, like over the whole arena. And then they had lights on it. I mean, it was amazing looking. Then of course they had the flying pig going over there. But if you guys get a chance to see Roger Waters, the show that he puts on, I mean, obviously he doesn't move around much, but he always has an amazing band, and just all the visuals that they use. It's some of the most amazing shows. I mean, I saw this tour. I saw The Wall when he performed that. That was just amazing. But anyway, I digress. I'm here to talk about this album, and it's fantastic.
Well, I almost think of that album is their presence. I feel like Zeppelin's presence sort of falls into that same category. Presence kind of is forgotten.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be. Achilles' Last Stand and T for One and all those songs. But again, this is not a Led Zeppelin video, but I feel like those two albums are very similar. Maybe that'll be a video I do. I don't know. Don't steal that idea. But no, but Animals, I agree with you. It is just a phenomenal record that people don't really think about too often.
It's one of those that grow on you. Every time you hear it, you like it more.
Yeah, and I like the fact too that both Roger Waters sings more on this one than he had previously, and he's got that kind of angry voice that mixes real. I love songs where both David Gilmour and Roger Waters sing pieces of them, or one sings one song, the other. It's just the dynamic is, I love it. You know,
I love how it's bookended by Pigs on the Wing. I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I just think that it's funny how, in my mind, those are two guys that don't necessarily get along that well, Roger Waters and David Gilmour, but neither one of them would have had the career without the other. You know, the way
Gary,
they work
listen,
together.
It's not Badger, but I'll give it.
No, it might not be a Badger, but it's a band called Pink Floyd, and it's okay, I guess.
Right. Yeah, we'll let it slide, Gary.
It's my number one pick. So there we go.
Okay, Aaron, you're number one.
My number one. Now, this is
Sweet
not.
Clutch.
Wasp.
Thor. Okay, now this record, people don't think of this band as being a progressive band, but this is a very progressive album. It has. I was listening to you talk about all those elements in a progressive album. Almost every single one of them is what this record is. This is Caius. Welcome to Sky Valley. And it's broken first of all, not into songs, into 3 movements. Roman numerals.
Oh, okay. So it is a prog record.
Oh, well, there you go.
No, but it's really cool because it's got all these different time signature changes. It's got all these different, like the mellow parts, the heavy parts, the spaced out parts, and very intricate guitar work. And it's just an amazing record. And when you hear it on CD, it's in 3 tracks, like 3 movements, and all these songs are lumped together. It's really cool how they did that. And this album I would put up against any other prog album, and it's for the complexity of the songs, but it's just such a great listen. And even stuff like Space Cadet, really mellow song like that, is amazing. That comes right after 100 Degrees, which is just in your face rocker. But Supa Scoopa and Mighty Scoop, I mean, that sounds pretty progressive.
It is progressive, yeah. Is it about ice cream or?
Yeah, no, this is just Josh Homme's guitar on this is freaking amazing. It's just unbelievable.
I need to listen to Caius. I have not listened to them yet.
Yeah,
They're considered stoner metal, stoner rock, but this is really progressive. I mean, their other albums have a little of it too, but especially Welcome to Sky Valley. It's just it's a trip. It just takes you on a whole journey, starting with Gardenia and into Asteroid, and you feel like you're in space. Feel like it's just crazy, amazing record, and I would recommend it to anybody.
cool.
Well, it's interesting that and I'm being serious here. I wonder what the difference between space rock and progressive rock is, because I would say Hawkwind, the band Hawkwind, can be considered progressive.
They are considered progressive, and they were big fans of Hawkwind. It's kind of like a heavier version of them in a way. This Caius sort of is that, except for their singer John Garcia is so good. It's just and it's just so such a unique record here. You never hear any. You'll hear it, and it's like, what is that? And then you're like, oh wow, that is so killer, because it's just it goes on to like one sound to another sound, and it's just. That's why I consider progressive. It isn't just a typical song with a structure of, the verse and the bridge and the chorus. It's all just crazy songs that are amazing. And they've got heavy, it's got mellow, it's got everything in this. It's a great record.
Well, it's interesting. I was just looking at this record again, Ramones' Road to Ruin, and I didn't realize this. The song I Want to Be Sedated has 6 movements to it. And they're all broken down by Roman numeral. Like it's a 2 minute and 30-second song, but there's 6 movements to it.
Wow.
People don't recognize. You might not know that. I mean, this album could be a progressive record.
Well, it's Roger Dean.
That blows my mind.
Yeah, this is Roger Dean artwork on here. So yeah.
All right. Well, everybody knows, if we're going to talk progressive rock, I got to talk Genesis. And there's so many great progressive Genesis albums. I mean, Foxtrot, Gary, the album you have behind you, Nursery Crime, which Aaron has behind him. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. You know, again.
Can I just say one thing? You're going to show Invisible Touch. I know you are. I have a feeling. Yeah, there we go. I knew it.
So hear me out. So you got Tonight, which is a long extended suite. You've got Domino Part 1 and Part 2. Part of the Night and the Last Domino Part 2. You got a track on here, the Brazil. It's hard to pronounce. The Brazil.
There you go.
Brazilian.
I'm checking these off. Yep.
Yeah. You know, Roger Dean-ish artwork. You know,
it's a prog album.
Yeah. Throwing he's got some real deep. You know,
I mean, I would argue that that's probably more prog than Lamb Lies Down on Broadway.
Oh, well, I mean, no question, but people don't give it enough credit because there were videos on MTV. And so,
or Peter Gabriel wasn't involved.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Or you had some drum machine elements.
Yeah.
So it's not a progressive rock album, but
you had the lamest album cover of all time.
You're gonna seriously tell me Invisible Touch is not progressive? The song, I mean, the title track is not progressive.
Well, listen, you can stretch that term. I'm sure. Didn't Duran Duran come out with a progressive rock album?
Seven and the Ragged Tiger. Yeah, they sure did. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah. Gary, Subterranean Jungle. Okay.
Yeah. All right. I've had my fun. But I'm going to go with Selling England by the Pound. Love this one. From Dancing with the Moonlit Night to Firth of Fifth, which Steve Hackett, you know, some of his best guitar work, I think, is on that track. You've got the Battle of Epping Forest, the Cinema Show is on here. So many great moments. And this has always been my favorite Peter Gabriel era album. I think it's great. Even Phil Collins has a vocal on here. This is the first album with a Phil Collins vocal on More Fool Me. It's not a very long song, but still closes out side one. And yeah, I think it's great. I love the album artwork. I love everything about it. It is one to check out if you have not discovered it yet.
Can I just say one more thing about prog? I want to go back to this album because I wrote these in my notes and I didn't mention it. This was Gentle Giant Octopus. Now, there's a song in here, and I didn't know this. I had to look it up. This is so prog, though. There's a song on here called A Cry for Everyone. It's inspired by the work and beliefs of the Algerian French writer Albert Camus. Like, seriously. And then they got a song on here called Knots, which is inspired by the book Knots by the Scottish psychiatrist R.D. Laing. Like, this is what you get with prog. Like, this is like thinking man's music. Like, it's inspired by shit that I don't even know about. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's really deep.
And you're smart.
Well, Gary, it's all an act. See, these glasses make me look smarter than I really am.
When I think didn't Gentle Giant, didn't they wear like tunics and tights on stage? When they played?
I thought that was Man of War.
Oh, I don't know, maybe, but
or Thor.
Or Thor.
I have a Thor thumb. Nobody is watching right now.
Hey, Jeff, that album you just showed, what year was that? Do you know?
This was 1973.
Okay.
That's a great album. It's a great record.
Yes, it is.
But all kidding aside, Invisible Touch really is a good album, though.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's, you know, it's not progressive. I mean, I almost feel like the reason why Tonight, and Domino are as long as they are because they feel like, well, got to make the people that were with us back in the Peter Gabriel days, we got to throw them a bone or something, or we got to stay true to our progressive roots, even though, I mean, they're really not.
Yeah, but I think what was good about Genesis is I think it was a slow transition. It wasn't like when Metallica came out with Load. You know, it was like they suddenly cut their hair and the song structures were different. Like I think Genesis made a nice progression. You know, they lost
Yeah.
members.
Because a trick of the tail is a great progression from Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I think that album really, it could have had Peter Gabriel on vocals. And that's the direction they would have gone in anyway. And then they went to, like a little further out with Wind and
Yeah.
Rain. And then, Steve Hackett left, and then then there were three, which had a little more, there were more songs, there were shorter songs. They had, poppier elements, and then Duke, which still has some progressive elements, but still you got a radio friendly single like Misunderstanding on there.
Abacab.
Yeah, Turn It On Again, Abacab, totally, which a lot of, I took a lot of shit because I actually said I like that album. And
It's a good album.
people who were,
I even like their self-titled album from '83.
yeah.
I don't know. See, that's the thing. I think people get hung up and like, I can't like that record. Like, I can't like Invisible Touch, or, I can't like Saint Anger, or I can't like Load, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
While we're still on the air here, Aaron, I wanted to ask you if you would pick one or two albums similar to the ones the rest of us were picking, like what would you have thrown in there?
Well, Nursery Crime, I really like that. And one of the Floyds, maybe. Let me see what I got behind me. Aqualung was one I almost put in anyway, because I love Aqualung much. And yeah. So yeah, maybe Larkstone and Aspect, and I can't even say the name of the band. Like King Crimson record, that's a really good one. I like that. I like the
I wanted to put a Jethro Tull record in. I should have.
Yeah, Aqualung to me is my favorite, but I like a lot of the Tull stuff, and I like a lot of the old Genesis, and I like the Phil Collins Genesis. I like all of it, but Nursery Crime is maybe my favorite, and then Abacab.
Do you guys like the Moody Blues at all? Like, I know Jeff does, but do you guys like the Moody Blues?
I really do.
I don't know enough of them. All I know is songs I've heard on the radio. I don't dislike them.
Right.
I've got over a half a dozen records of them. I might have thrown one of them in as well. Maybe Days of Future Past even. I love that record. I grew up with that one too. And I love that one.
It'd be interesting to talk about how prog developed, though, because I think there's elements of psychedelic rock in there. There's elements of space rock. And I think all that stuff sort of combined into and became prog.
And this is kind of the evolution of it, was Caius kind of where it came, all that stuff, and it just took another leap to this. I think this is a different thing than a lot of the 70s prog, but has a lot of the same elements, and it's really good.
Caius, are they still a band, or are they still together?
No, they had 4 albums in the early 90s.
Oh, okay.
And they broke up, and the guitarist and the singer both went and did different, but all of them kind of did their own thing. The guitarist went and formed Queens of the Stone Age, and he did them Crooked Vultures with David Grohl and John Paul Jones, and he was a death metal. And the singer is John Garcia, who I always talk about.
Right.
That's albums, and he was in a band called Hermano and Unida. And then Nick Oliveri, who has a very interesting acoustic record, who's the bass player. And the drummer, Brant Bjork, went on, and he was in Fu Manchu for a bit, and he has solo records. So they're all really prolific, like all the members.
And I want to show this band too. This is a prog band called Gong. And this is a spaced out record. And I'm not an expert on Gong, but their guitarist, Steve Hillage, he's an amazing guitar player. He did some solo shit too. But if anybody wants to check out like just proggity prog, if that's even a term.
It is now.
Gong.
I have another one. Let me show. Let's see if I can find it.
Do you have Gong, Aaron?
Huh?
Do you have Gong?
No, but I have another record that I was thinking about using. You're talking about what I would have used.
Do you have Badger? Do you have a Japanese pressing of Badger?
I have an Antarctica pressing from the country of Antarctica. So this one I might have shown. I like this a lot.
Oh, okay.
Starcastle, nice.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and hopefully you've learned a little something. I'm sure the progressive rock fans will let us know what they think of our picks and maybe add a couple more to our list. But until next week, have a great one.
See ya.